Hello my friends, welcome to Reddit Rabbit. Before we start, catch the rabbit at the bottom right corner, smash that subscribe button and leave a comment. Today I learned that Elvis Presley's manager sold I Hate Elvis badges as a way to make money from people who weren't buying Elvis merchandise. The reason I'm telling you all this is because I'm playing both sides so that I always come out on top. You're not supposed to tell us you're playing both sides. What he's not telling you is that he's playing the third side, that you'll join in your attempt to spite him. I am on nobody's side because nobody is on my side. Treebeard, the Lord of the Rings. That's some G-it. That's some tree-it. Reminds me of Kimmy Schmidt, where one of the plot lines was how much more money the Redskins made off of people burning their jerseys in protest versus actual fans. NWA 2. Everyone freaking out that they destroying their it. Eazy-E was like whatever, they paid for it. Same with the Nike Keep Earning thing. J.K. Rowling had the same attitude when Christian groups were burning her books. At least they didn't turn to burning J.K. Rowling. Why would they? She's clearly not a witch. Same thing as when Brian Bosworth sold t-shirts at his NFL games. He sold all of his Pro Boz shirts and also secretly sold a ton of the Hating on Boz shirts as well. Ever seen the 3430 on him? It's really touching and shows his contrition for what, for him, was a time in his young life where he admits he went way too far up his own butt and lost a bit of his humanity because he got lost in the woods of fame. It's the only one so far to make me cry, too, with the scenes with his son. He seems like such a, human. Marketing level 1000. Outstanding move. Modern problems, old school solutions. It ain't much, but it's honest work. This is the same guy who also managed to hide the fact that he was Dutch and undocumented in the United States. So, deception level 1000 as well. Today I learned. Colonel Tom Parker was an illegal immigrant into the US. And he never obtained any type of legal immigrant status. That is one of the reasons why Elvis never performed concerts outside of North America. He hid that his whole life. Never visited Elvis in Germany. Because he didn't have a passport to get back in. Otherwise, Elvis would have gone on a world tour and made millions more. I remember from an interview from a close friend of Elvis telling him days before he died he was going to drop Parker, lose the weight and travel the world. Also he was, along with his costume designer, planning to add lasers to his stage costume. Something MJ did years later. I remember from an interview from a close friend of Elvis telling him days before he died he was going to drop Parker, lose the weight and travel the world. I smell a new theory. When he died, Priscilla Presley attended his funeral and gave a eulogy. Elvis and the Colonel made history together, and the world is richer, better and far more interesting because of their collaboration. And now I need to locate my wallet, because I noticed there was no ticket booth on the way in here, but I'm sure that the Colonel must have arranged for some toll on the way out. This is where WWE got the idea to sell shirts saying Cena sucks. That makes a lot more sense too, given that they script the controversies and fan attitudes. Controversies yes, fan attitudes no. They had to switch the entire main event of WrestleMania 30 just to appease the fans, lol. Unless they planned that the whole time, which would truly be 18D hyperdimensional Chinese checkers. George Lucas sold Han Shot First shirts for exactly the same reason. People who wouldn't buy Star Wars merch are certainly not going to buy a Han Shot First shirt. So not exactly the same reason. Makes sense it was Lucas's idea, because he still got it wrong. It'd be more accurate to say Han Shot. Since there was never a second shot, it's poorly worded to say the only shot was the first. Han Shot wouldn't work either, as in the version where Greedo shot first, Han still shot. Only Han Shot makes the most sense. Or Greedo never shot. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. Wayne Greedo. 50 million Elvis fans can't be wrong is also a stroke of genius. Ever heard of the Elvis record Having Fun with Elvis on Stage? The album was the idea of Carl Tom Parker, Presley's manager. Parker wished to release an Elvis Presley album through Boxcar Records, a company that he formed to manage Presley's commercial rights so that he could profit directly from it. However, Since Presley was signed to RCA Records, any recordings made would legally belong to RCA. To circumvent this restriction, Parker compiled audio of Presley talking, not singing, material over which RCA could not claim rights. Elvis didn't even know Parker was making that album and hated it so much that he made him pull it out of circulation. And it turned out RCA owned the rights to Elvis talking anyway, so RCA got the rights to the album. Boz did the same thing. Primus sucks. The current example of this would be if George R.R. Martin was the one who created the "I'm the only person who hasn't seen Game of Thrones" campaign to get free advertisements for GOT. HBO needs to sell "I've never seen Game of Thrones" t-shirts. No wait. Plaques. Trophies. An anti-participation trophy. Someone get me HBO. Like Zip the What It, realizing he could make more money getting paid not to play his fiddle, played intentionally horribly, than he could playing it. Got him coming and going. This reminds me of a high school friend's "I Hate Real Big Fish" shirt. He actually didn't like the band and I don't think he realized the shirt was licensed by them. Great marketing for sure. Didn't Limp Bizkit do something similar? Yeah, he was also a terrible person who took advantage of the good-natured naive Elvis and robbed him of most of his wealth. But hey, he was a marketing genius. He also gambled all his money away and died a doorman in Vegas. Genius. Oh it, how much of the anti-Trump merchandise do you figure actually Melania's escape fund? Same reason why Marlboro will sell "Quit Smoking" aids. They get you when you're coming and going. Next thing they need is a hospital and they will corner the market. Andreas Cornelis Van Kijck was quite a clever guy. Oops. You weren't supposed to know that. The Colonel was truly a bad person. Ruined Elvis. Capitalism. The art of playing both sides of the fence for profits. Laughs in capitalism. Smart man. Let's just hope no one mentions this money-making idea to R. Kelly's manager. One year I was at a pride parade. A guy had his sidewalk table set up, and walking up seemed fairly standard for the event. Rainbow flags and pins, hats, stickers, postcards, all overpriced. On the other side of the same display were MAGA hats and other pro-Trump gear. Don't know what that guy is into, but he's a smart businessman. Kanye's manager. Stacy, get me a printing company on the phone. Immediately. Play both sides of the fence. That way you always come out on top. A true businessman. A true story. Some years ago, I took part on a course for unemployed office clerks. Open office and such. I wasn't an unemployed office clerk. I was simply unemployed. But somehow I talked myself into that course. It was necessary to travel by train to that course. On one of those train rides, I met a guy and he immediately started to talk to me. We became buddies and talked often during the train ride. He was a Jew. And he kinda bragged around with that. Anyway, one time, he invited me to an open-air rock festival. And, because I am a big fan of rock, I agreed to come with him. He wanted to come together with his ex-girlfriend that evening. But Fortuna and Aphrodite had other plans for him. Though luck. She is more interested in me than in him. I didn't do anything and definitely didn't wanted to ruin it for him. After all, he invited me. But he grew mad at me and it became a quite annoying evening. Only topped by 50 Nazi skinheads who entered the festival, right at the moment an Elvis imitator was playing. They danced around, made pogo, right in front of the stage, and all the other people who also danced in front of the stage left. They scared the people away. My annoying Jewish sidekick went pale and was obviously afraid. What if they find out I am Jewish? They won't. How can you know? Sigh. I wasn't worried about him. One time I did my best to convince a bunch of skinheads that I am Jewish. My name is from the Old Testament and look at my nose. They didn't do anything to me. They were way too paranoid and afraid of Jews. But I am not a Jew and I couldn't really relate to what he was going through. So I asked him, shall we do something about it? Doing something about 50 Nazi skinheads? He looked at me like I was insane. Yeah, Never mind. I want to see Elvis. Hold my beer. I'm back in a minute. Just as a side note, there were several thousand people at the festival, a German festival, and I felt deeply ashamed that this farce was allowed to go on. Didn't my fellow Germans learn anything at all from history? 50 Nazi skinheads ruined it for a few thousand people. History repeats itself, doesn't it? First, what I did was searching for higher ground, so I could overlook the crowd. All Nazi skinheads were dancing around, except one. The biggest of all. Gotcha. The alpha Nazi. So I made me on my way. Excuse me, Mr. Nazi. Get out of my way. Please step aside. Thank you very much. Until I stand behind the alpha Nazi. He was easily 2 heads taller than me. I poked him harshly on the back. He frightened and turned around to look down on me in confusion. Look, I said. It is not about your political view, but what are you thinking you and your friends are doing here? I had a long week. I work a lot. I was looking forward to see Elvis, and those people, I pointed at the crowd of few thousand visitors, feel pretty much the same. Don't get me wrong, but I really think you and your friends have to leave now. He looked around, thought, understood and agreed. I went back to my annoying Jewish sidekick. Done. They leave. He looked at me in disbelief, but it took only about 2 minutes, and all the skinhead Nazis were gone. You may think that he thanked me for that, but it made him dislike me even more. I understood it. He was a coward. I was not. A good reason to become resentful. Later that night I was given a lot of free beer and had to tell the story over and over again to all the people who watched what happened and were eager to know what I did to make the Nazi skinheads leave. I told them that they have to leave. Sometimes it's that easy, because sometimes it is true.